LinkedIn presents.
Inclusion has been made overly politicized and narrowly defined to largely issues of gender and race. Ironically, inclusion itself has been made too small, stuck at the end of the DEI acronym. As a result, we need a fresh, new approach to inclusive leadership that goes beyond DEI, harnessing its power for innovation and growth.
It's Thursday, and I'm Michael Kovnat. Welcome to the Next Big Idea Daily, the show that helps you live smarter, healthier, and brighter. Well, if you've been paying attention to news out of the White House, you'll know that the pushback against diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives is in full swing, both in the federal government and at least some major companies. That makes this an excellent time for leaders to clarify their organization's values or lack thereof. Rather than simply ticking off the right boxes, real leadership involves setting clear goals and guiding motivated teams, whether you're at the top of an organization or not. The former CEO of AT&T Business, Chow, exemplifies this approach. During her tenure, she led a $35 billion business with 35,000 employees serving 3 million global customers. Famous for building high-performing teams, Ann now teaches at Northwestern University's Kellogg School of Management. She's lead director on the board of Franklin Covey and serves on the board of 3M and CSX. Her new book is called Lead Bigger, The Transformative Power of Inclusion. And it's a guide to meaningful leadership that goes beyond surface-level diversity efforts. She'll share some of her insights right after this quick break.
I'm Jessie Hempel, host of Hello Monday. In my 20s, I knew what I wanted from my career. But from where I am now, in the middle of my life, nothing feels as certain. Work's changing, we're changing, and there's no guidebook for how to make sense of any of it. So every Monday, I bring you conversations with people who are thinking deeply about work and where it fits into our lives. We talk about making career pivots, about purpose and how to discern it, about where happiness fits into the mix, and how to ask for more money. Come join us in the Hello Monday community. Let's figure out the future together. Listen to Hello Monday with Jessie Hempel wherever you get your podcasts.
This is Ann Chow, author of Lead Bigger, The Transformative Power of Inclusion. Over the past 3 decades, I've had the opportunity to be both a student and a practitioner of leadership. Throughout my career, from my early days as an engineer to my years as a CEO, and now as a board director and professor, through a wide array of experiences, I've developed a practical framework for leadership that is both timely and timeless. In a world that's become more interconnected yet polarized, inclusion has been made overly politicized and narrowly defined to largely issues of gender and race. Ironically, inclusion itself has been made too small, stuck at the end of the DEI acronym. As a result, we need a fresh, new approach to inclusive leadership that goes beyond DEI, harnessing its power for innovation and growth. I'd like to share 5 key insights from the book with you. Key insight number 1. Purpose first. To go beyond the daily grind, bigger leaders must do the work to develop, harness, and evolve your purpose as your foundation and reason for being. Without purpose, your work risks becoming meaningless or irrelevant. Your stakeholders will be uninspired, loyalty will be scarce, and the purpose-led team will outcompete you. Some might think that unless you're the founder of a company, an entrepreneur, or a CEO, the purpose of your work is someone else's to decide. This couldn't be further from the truth. Our purpose is the essential why behind the work we do. It is different than an organization's mission, which represents an objective and/or set of actions that an individual or set of people are charged with. No matter the kind of work you do, you are on a mission to reach some type of destination that yields desired outcomes for some or all of your stakeholders. If you are not sure what your purpose is, ask yourself, what if we didn't exist? Who would care and why? Be sure this purpose resonates with your priority stakeholders. Your purpose is the central rallying point for all of your efforts. It's most engaging when it's tied to our hopes for ourselves and the world around us. Without purpose, there is no inspiration. Linking your talent to purpose on a journey of growth is an energizing mix. Values are vital. Bigger leaders are clear about organizational values. These are the guiding principles you and your team must embody. They set the foundation for your culture and the behavioral norms, processes, and practices that emerge as you advance your work forward. Too often, values can become an exercise in spinning platitudes. Big values resonate deeply with your stakeholders, often both professionally and personally, but only if your leaders and every member of your team live them. You will have both core values, which exist today, as well as aspirational values, those which you must develop and invest in to further deliver upon your goals. This value grounding exercise is one that should not be done alone, nor is it a public relations exercise. Invite input from stakeholders, especially your team members. Ensuring ownership from your team is paramount. Include an understanding of what the consequences are if values are not practiced. Tough decisions will often be made more clearly and confidently based on your values, which must be both stated and lived. When it comes to establishing your values, the most important constituent is to cater to your workforce. Your team's values will have an impact on recruiting and retaining top talent and will establish a foundation for inclusive collaboration. Those self-same values will also help you see more clearly when faced with challenges of all kinds. Research shows that values alignment increases job satisfaction, collaboration, communication, and trust while reducing turnover. Performance for your stakeholders. Who are your stakeholders? Think of them as a collection of communities that impact or are impacted by your work. Examples include your team members, suppliers, customers, investors, and partners. Depending on your industry, they could also include regulators, lobbyists, analysts, unions, volunteers, and more. Each of these stakeholder groups will likely each have their own distinct needs, but they can help or hinder your efforts only to the degree you engage and include them. How can you ensure all feel as though they are connected to you, and some even feel that they belong? How can you get them to work with you effectively? It requires taking in their perspectives with deep consideration and thought, with a bias towards making better decisions for greater outcomes. Ultimately, all work is about performance. For most, though, performance has many different facets, whether financial, operational, customer, organizational, reputational, or otherwise. Step 1 to ensuring an inclusive approach to performance is to ground yourself in your stakeholders and understand their priorities. What do they view as success for you and your team? How would they measure it? Too often, leaders can focus on output and activity rather than outcomes and impact. Be sure to understand the why behind any given goal and establish metrics and milestones that matter. Most importantly, your stakeholders are whom you are performing for and with. Establishing clarity on what success looks like by stakeholder group is paramount to delivering upon your purpose. As examples, your shareholders will care most about return on investment and return on equity. Your customers may care most about your ability to innovate and keep your promises as it relates to your products and services. Your suppliers will care about win-win scenarios that enable them to grow alongside you. And your employees will want to work in a high-trust environment with meaningful work where they are respected, valued, appreciated, and included. And remember, at any given time, not all stakeholder priorities are treated equally. Prioritization is key. Win with well-being. For people to perform at their best, they must be at their best. Amid a global mental health crisis, most people say that work is a source of at least one mental health challenge. In fact, recent studies show that managers have just as much of an impact on a person's mental health as their spouse, and even more than their doctor or their therapists. Of course, Leaders aren't therapists, but they can drastically improve their team's outcomes by focusing on employee well-being and fostering a culture of belonging. The pressures in the workforce are real. Many feel stress, burnout, exhaustion, loneliness, depression, and anxiety, to the point where these mental health behavior disorders are the leading cause of disability. A third of workers felt depressed or anxious at least once a week. These were emotions that most people would not be comfortable revealing, especially at work. There is a bias that these feelings are signs of weakness as opposed to simply part of being human. Contrary to common perception, mental health struggles are not relegated to one generation or segment of the population. Every demographic is hurting. Most leaders are, of course, not mental health professionals, and they must respect the boundaries around these sensitive issues. Yet the responsibility to safeguard the well-being of the workforce has landed at their feet due to the expectations of their people and the link between well-being and performance results. Well-being, whether it be physical, mental, emotional, or financial, is a leadership responsibility. Fortify with flexibility. If you want to bend, not break, under pressure, you need flexibility in your people, practices, and policies. Bigger leaders champion flexible jobs, careers, and lives. Flexibility goes far beyond hybrid work environments. It's all about understanding a more strategic, inclusive view of someone's job, far beyond the day-to-day. First, leaders must always recognize that an employee has a job, which is in the context of their career, and that career is ongoing, growing, and vital. Their career exists as a subset of their life. Yes, it's a significant part. After all, they say that we will spend about a third of our lives working, but it's simply a part of the vast landscape of our lives. Too many managers focus solely on the job at hand. They're intent on generating the output, meeting the metrics of the day, and are honed in on what they and their teams are dealing with only in their immediate horizon. And some managers don't even take this to an individual level. They're concentrating on the whole of their group because the collective work is how they'll be measured. This approach misses the necessary human connection each leader should have with their team members, helping them elevate their performance both individually as well as collectively. We've seen a growing amount of experimentation across different companies about the how, where, even when of work, including 4-day work weeks and off hours. With respect to the job, the bigger leader considers the different ways each individual can be most productive and engaged, as well as creative ways for the team to collaborate. Once you expand this in the context of their career, bigger leaders are compelled to more deeply understand what growth aspirations each team member has and act accordingly, with emphasis on developmental experiences, programs, and more. Ultimately, perhaps the most important context for a flexible workplace is the acknowledgement that one's job and career exists in the context of their whole life. Embrace the fact that people's lives will always remain at the top of their mind. Jobs and careers are building blocks to one's life, not the other way around. What's that old adage? We work to live, not live to work? A flexible foundation to your culture requires leadership commitment and action. These actions should include policies and practices that support the whole individual in the context of their evolving lives. Remember that your people can only perform at their best when they are at their best. Flexible choice is foundational for a trusted, agile workplace. Leadership is all about people, motivating, aligning, and inspiring a group of people to deliver upon a common purpose and set of goals. Leading bigger is required to advance progress across society as a whole. Leading bigger, also known as inclusive leadership, is widening your perspective to have greater performance and impact. We can only be so effective if we have a small focus on rowing a single boat with our own immediate team, without coordinating with the distinct sets of people who care, are involved in, or impacted by our work. We will be most effective if we can cruise along with all of these important stakeholders. Leading bigger is about a whole fleet of boats rowing with purpose together. Leading bigger enables us to advance work that matters, develop a vital, innovative workforce, and create a trusted, agile workplace. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoy the book, and I hope to meet you along the way as we forge the path together to becoming the bigger leaders the world needs now.
Thank you, Anne. All right, everyone, get yourself a copy of Lead Bigger at your favorite bookstore. And remember, if you want to have big ideas like this right in your pocket, head over to the App Store and download our next Big Idea app. I'm Michael Kovnat. See you tomorrow.